Hello and welcome back to another edition of the train station. As always, I am your host, A-Train. It's March. It's madness. That's right. March Madness right around the corner. And I'm going to break down my bracket for you, discuss some of the games, some sleeper picks that I have, and all of that right here, right now. We're gonna start in the West region. Actually, we're gonna start with the play-in games. So we have 4 play-in games. We have Wichita State and Drake, Norfolk and Appalachian State, Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's, along with Michigan State and UCLA. The MSU-UCLA game, Michigan State has been a very wild card. They've been playing well against good teams, bad against, bad teams, but I think they'll pull it out there. I got MSU winning their play-in game to move on to play BYU. Wichita State Drake, I think Wichita State pulls it out, and they will play USC. Appalachian State and Mount St. Mary's, I believe, will all pick up wins. So now that we know we got Gonzaga and Appalachian State, it doesn't matter who wins that game, Gonzaga wins by a lot. Oklahoma and Missouri, an old Big 12 rivalry. Now that Missouri is in the SEC, these two only really see each other in non-conference or in the tournament. Missouri and Oklahoma, I went back and forth on this game. Both have very big wins. Oklahoma has a win over Alabama, but Missouri has a win over Illinois and Alabama. So, it's very tough to decide. I went back and forth, but ultimately I think the 8-9 is always tough, but ultimately I think Oklahoma will pull away. Creighton and University of California, Santa Barbara. This is one of my sleeper picks, as University of Santa Barbara has been playing very well. Unfortunately for them, they've had no opponents with no top opponents that they've played. While Creighton has lost to Kansas by 1, and they split with Villanova. They also beat UConn 3 times. So, it's just, I don't know, I have a good feeling about an upset here. Give me University of California, Santa Barbara. Virginia and Ohio. The MAC champions versus the ACC regular season champion, as they were kicked out of the ACC tournament due to a positive COVID test. Does that affect them in some way? I guess we'll see. The downfall of Virginia is they've played Gonzaga already, and they lost by 23. They've played Florida State. They lost by 21. Ohio has a decent non-conference. They played the Big Ten, the number 3 overall, number 1 seed in Illinois, and they lost by 2 on the road. Again, this one smells like an upset. I'm gonna go with Ohio over Virginia to set up a University of California Santa Barbara versus Ohio spot in the round of 32 for a spot at the Sweet 16. USC versus what I said, Wichita State. Wichita State has a very good chance to win this game, but USC, I think, is peaking at the right time. USC wins. Kansas, Eastern Washington. Now, this could be a very good sleeping matchup, another one where you could see a lot of upsets on this part of the bracket in the West, but I think Kansas, Bill Self, finally in the tournament. One of the Blue Bloods, since Duke and Kentucky aren't here, one of the Blue Bloods has to win, right? I think Kansas pulls away, wins. Oregon and VCU, another very good 7-10. I have VCU in there for a while, but I ended up changing it at the end. I think Oregon, Pac-12, too tough. Oregon will win. Iowa and Grand Canyon. A lot of people I've seen have Grand Canyon upsetting Iowa. I don't think so. Too much Luka Garza. Luka Garza, one of the top players in the whole entire NCAA. Iowa wins, pulls it out. We'll play Oregon. So we're going to scroll up, and now in the round of 32, we have Gonzaga and Oklahoma. Gonzaga will take care of business. A matchup probably nobody really expects, but I'm telling you to book it right now in all of your brackets. It's California, Santa Barbara versus Ohio, as I've mentioned. This is going to be a very exciting matchup. I wish I could pick Ohio here, but I can't. Like I said, I think UCSB is just peaking right now, and they're going to head to the Sweet 16. USC and Kansas. A pair of blue bloods. USC's been down lately, but I think they will be alright. I'm gonna go ahead and pick, Bill Self and Kansas to advance. Iowa, Oregon, again, too much Luca Garza there. Iowa advances. And now in the Sweet 16, we've got Gonzaga and UCSB. Gonzaga's kind of had a cakewalk to this point. They continue right along into the Elite Eight. Kansas and Iowa, a matchup of, very, very good squads. Luca Garza and company is great. Big Ten's had a good year, but I think this is where Bill Self continues to go on a run. Kansas and Gonzaga for a spot in the Final Four. And I think once again Bill Self and company take it. Gonzaga, although undefeated, it's happened before and only one team has managed to go all the way. I do not think that'll happen here. Gonzaga, a good undefeated run, but their run ends. Kansas, my first team in the Final Four. Now we're heading down to the East. We got Michigan versus the winner of Mount St. Mary's, Texas Southern. Doesn't matter. Michigan wins. LSU and St. Bonaventure. LSU has really started to peak late, which is why a lot of people think that they could go very far. St. Bonaventure as well, but the Bonnies, you got to watch out for them. This is a matchup of, another 8-9 that's very hard. St. Bonaventure's only holding teams, though, to 60 points a game, which I think will be the big difference. They've also had some decent wins against VCU. They actually beat VCU twice. LSU's played Alabama and lost to them 3 times. They've played Arkansas, won twice, and they have good wins. But I think the difference is St. Bonaventure's held teams to 60 points per game, and that ultimately is going to be the difference. They beat LSU and move on. 5-12, Georgetown and Colorado. Georgetown not even expected to make the tournament, but went on an absolute tear in the Big East tournament. Colorado's the dangerous spot. With no tournament last year, 2019 was the first year that 5 seeds actually won. I'm going to roll with the 12 seed Georgetown as they continue to be on a roll. And yeah, Georgetown upsets Colorado. Florida State and UNC Greensboro. Another game where, it's tough, but Florida State 11-4 in the conference. They beat Virginia by 21. They beat North Carolina twice. I think ultimately that's going to be the difference. Florida State wins, advances. Michigan State, UCLA winner versus BYU. I said Michigan State would win this game against UCLA. I think this is just the perfect time for Izzo. I think they got disrespected a bit by getting a play-in game over teams like Syracuse or North Carolina, who's way too high, and I will talk about that later. But I have MSU not only beating UCLA, but also beating BYU. I think Michigan State's just too good against good teams, and they will find a way to win against BYU. Texas and Albion Christian. Texas, I don't know. They lost. They beat Kansas twice, so I have in the Final Four, but, they can't count out this Albion Christian team. They're 23-4, which is very, very good. They played Arkansas and Texas Tech, and they lost Arkansas by 13, but only lost to Texas Tech by 7. The same team same Texas Tech team beat Texas twice, so both these teams have lost to Texas Tech. But in the end, I think I'm going to go with another upset here, and Albion Christian is going to beat the Texas Longhorns and meet Michigan State in the round of 32. UConn, Maryland. Again, UConn and Maryland, very tough, 7-10. Both teams play very good defense. UConn has played teams tough, as has Illinois. Illinois being in the Big Ten, but they've lost to the good Big Ten teams a lot. They lost to Michigan 3 times. They lost to Iowa by 22. They did beat Illinois, but they also lost to Ohio State. And then UConn, they played USC. They've won. They lost to Villanova by 8. So both teams have some tough losses, but Maryland only scores 68 points a game. I don't know if they're going to be able to score enough to keep up with UConn. UConn moves on. Alabama, Ionia. There's not much to say about this. Alabama wins. Moving on to the round of 32. Michigan, St. Bonaventure. A lot of people have LSU here, but I picked the Bonnies because of their defense. I think Michigan will survive, advance, and move on, and the Sweet 16 will be really interesting. Georgia and Florida State. Georgetown, like I said, they have the hot hand. They're going to continue that. They're going to upset Florida State and move on to the Sweet 16. A matchup literally I don't think anybody has. Michigan State and Albion Christian. Michigan State is going to pull off the win. Tom Izzo is going to somehow, someway get this team into the Sweet 16. UConn and Alabama. Alabama's had an incredible season, and we've talked about UConn. UConn's held teams to 64.6 points per game. Alabama 69. Alabama's averaged almost 80 points a game. UConn's right there at about 73. Both these teams get up and down. It's going to be a very high-scoring game, but in the end, I think UConn will make a run. UConn will advance to the Sweet 16 to play Michigan State. So as we check the Sweet 16, in this side, we have Michigan State, Georgetown, and MSU, UConn. Michigan, this is all going to depend on the health of Isaiah Livers. If Isaiah Livers can come back, I think Michigan will run the table. Do I think he'll be 100%? Absolutely not. But I think he'll be healthy enough to play, which is even an 85% Isaiah Livers is better than no Livers at all. I think Michigan will end Georgetown's amazing Cinderella story. Michigan advances to the Elite Eight. UConn MSU. I was very tempted to put, for this matchup, MSU UConn. MSU's played Michigan twice, beat them once, they split. It was very tough for me to not do this, but I have to go UConn. Michigan State a third time seems like a likely idea, but I just don't see it happening. UConn continues their improbable run, with Michigan advancing to the Final Four over UConn. And, we're going to now stick here to the Midwest. Illinois over Drexel, nothing to say there. Loyola, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech made the ACC championship because of COVID to Duke and Virginia. And they actually beat Florida State in the championship to secure a spot. I think that is going to be enough to ride them into the next game. Tennessee, Oregon State. A lot of people. I picked a lot of 12s over here, so I'm going to just go ahead and pick the safe one in Tennessee. Oklahoma State, Liberty. Cade Cunningham, the projected number 1 overall pick in the NBA. And for the NBA draft, will get the job done for Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State won't go anywhere. One thing I will say about the Midwest is there is a lot of orange. Illinois, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, Syracuse, Clemson. There's a lot of orange in this bracket. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Oklahoma State. Getting back on track, Syracuse, San Diego State. Syracuse was lucky to even be a shoe-in total. I think MSU and Syracuse should have traded places. And Syracuse should be in the play-in game, but this is a very bad matchup for Syracuse. San Diego State plays great defense, holding teams to just about 59, 60 points a game while scoring 75. They are also 2-0 against the top 25. They beat UCLA. They've beaten Boise State. And there's really just not a whole lot of good wins there for Syracuse. They lost to Virginia twice. They lost to Rutgers, Georgia Tech, and they split with Clemson, who's the 7th seed. But I don't think they've won enough. San Diego State's defense gets the job done. San Diego State moves on. West Virginia, Morehead State. This is not a 3-14 I'm picking as an upset. I think West Virginia, Bob Huggins. Gotta love Bob Huggins. Great coach. He gets the job done for West Virginia against San Diego State. Clemson and Rutgers, another Big Ten matchup, another rivalry Big Ten matchup another matchup for the Big Ten. They have 9 teams in the ACC. Clemson beat a good Alabama team, but what scares me about Clemson is they lost to Virginia by 35 points. Rutgers has played teams tough. They lost to Michigan by 7. They beat a very good Purdue team by 5, and they split with Michigan State. I think that's enough Rutgers will beat Clemson and move on. Houston and Cleveland State. Cleveland State, it's nice to see them in the tournament, but it'll be short-lived. Houston will move on. The round of 32 here in the Midwest, you have Illinois and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's improbable run will end. Illinois moves on. Too much Ayo Dosunmu for Georgia Tech to handle. Ayo Dosunmu and Illinois are playing just too well right now. Tennessee, Oklahoma, battle of some of the oranges. We're going to have another battle of the orange no matter what happens here, but I think, again, the number 1 overall pick, Cade Cunningham, too much for Tennessee, moves on to the Elite Eight, or to the Sweet 16 against Illinois, in a very, very good matchup, which I will talk about. Ayo Dosunmu and Cade Cunningham in a must-see matchup. But West Virginia, San Diego State, two very good defensive teams. It's going to be a low-scoring defensive game, which I think will benefit West Virginia. West Virginia will move on. Now, Rutgers and Houston. Now, this is not an ideal matchup for Rutgers. However, Houston 24-3. They've held teams to just 58 points per game while scoring 77. Rutgers, can they score enough to stop Houston? Again, both teams is going to be another very good defensive matchup, but I think the Big Ten has been the best conference in the country for a reason. I'm going to go ahead and say Rutgers pulls it off against Houston to get a West Virginia-Rutgers match in the Elite Eight, or in the Sweet 16. So I've mentioned it. Ayo Dosunmu versus Cade Cunningham, an absolute barn burner to watch. But Ayo Dosunmu and Illinois advance. An old Big East rivalry, West Virginia, Rutgers. Neither team is now in the Big East. West Virginia in the Big 12, Rutgers in the Big 10. Rutgers' amazing run comes to an end. West Virginia moves on to the Elite Eight against Illinois. Illinois, West Virginia, again, I've mentioned it over and over. Illinois and Ayo Dosunmu have just been playing too well. Illinois moves on to the Final Four. And in the final bracket up here, we have in the South, I believe, yes, the South Conference, Baylor, Hartford. Baylor wins. I mentioned North Carolina had no business being as high as they are. They are an 8 seed. Absolutely no business being there. Give me Wisconsin over North Carolina. North Carolina being a blue blood. You know, they had to give one blue blood a good seed with Duke and Kentucky being out of the tournament, as I mentioned. Wisconsin moves on, wins. Villanova and Winthrop. Winthrop is just a one-loss team. They come in at 23-1. Villanova 16-6. Villanova is missing a starter due to a torn ACL, but Winthrop being 23-1 is dangerous, but you can't count out Villanova. Give me Villanova over Winthrop in the win. Purdue and North Texas. This is not one of those scary 4-3. I don't think North Texas is going to be able to keep up with the size, strength, and speed of a Big Ten Purdue. Give me Purdue against Villanova. Texas Tech and Utah State. I was back and forth constantly on this one. I wrote down Texas Tech, then I switched it to Utah State, then I switched it back to Texas Tech. But because these teams are so similar, both teams average about 73 points per game while holding their opponent to 62, 63 points per game. They're both very, very good. Texas Tech is 17-10. Utah State's 20-8. It is very, very dangerous 6-11. Texas Tech, though, on upset alert. Give me Utah State with the victory over Texas Tech. I know I've picked a lot of upsets. I just think they're going to happen. Utah State, Texas Tech are so similar that I think that it just favors Utah State in that situation. Colgate and Arkansas. Colgate, a very, very good high-scoring team. They average 86 points per game, only giving up 68, 69 points per game. They score a lot, but I think Arkansas will be able to hold them. Arkansas advances over Utah State. Virginia Tech and Florida. I think Virginia Tech being the 10, absolute disgraceful. They've been a consistent top 25 team all year, and they're a 10 seed. They beat Villanova by 8. They beat Virginia. They do have bad losses to Syracuse and North Carolina, but they do, like I said, they do have good wins over Villanova and Virginia. Texas has a bad loss to Arkansas, bad loss to Alabama. They do have a win over LSU and West Virginia, but they lost to also to a Missouri team that's not that great. They are 14-9. Virginia Tech is 15-6. Virginia Tech has been so disrespected as a 10. I think that might be the easiest 10 seed I've picked. Virginia Tech advances. Ohio State, Oral Roberts, Ohio State. Nothing much to say there. Ohio State has struggled a bit down the stretch, but they did make the Big Ten championship. I think that'll be enough to get them over the hump. The round of 32, Baylor, Wisconsin. I think Baylor squeaks by here. Wisconsin and Baylor. Wisconsin plays a very boring brand of basketball, but I think Baylor will play well enough. Even though I've learned not to trust Baylor, I think they'll play well enough. They average 84.4 points per game. Wisconsin plays too slow, and I don't think they'll be able to keep up with Baylor. Baylor advances. Villanova, Purdue, a very exciting matchup between top teams. Purdue has struggled recently in the tournament, and Villanova, despite missing some players, like I said, you cannot count out Villanova. Give me Villanova over Purdue. Utah State and Arkansas, the improbable run here for Utah State comes to an end. Arkansas will handle Utah State with ease and move on. Ohio State, Virginia Tech. Again, one of those that I was back and forth on simply because Virginia Tech has been very, very much disrespected all year long. A consistent top 25 team, like I said. Ohio State, though, has played well enough down the stretch to win. So we will get Baylor, Villanova, and Arkansas, Ohio State to determine the Elite Eight matchup. Villanova and Baylor, like I said, I have learned not to trust Baylor, so for that alone, I'm going to go with Villanova simply just because I cannot trust Baylor. Every time Baylor, I pick Baylor to go far, they never do, so this will probably be a year where they don't even make it this far, and every time I don't, they always make it far. I don't know what to do with Baylor, I never do, so I'm going to just go with the safe bet in Villanova. Arkansas and Ohio State, a very, very good matchup. One that I have, one to look forward to. Ohio State has shown some inconsistencies, and I think here that will hurt them. Arkansas will advance over Ohio State simply based off the inconsistencies of Ohio State. They play well, and then they don't. They're one of those teams that when they play well, they're unbeatable, and when they play very, very bad, you can get beat by the worst team. So I think that alone, Arkansas will slide on in. Arkansas and Villanova is a matchup, a very good one. It's going to probably be defensive, but I think this is where Arkansas will advance because Villanova is missing that, their senior leader. So Arkansas advances over Villanova to make the Final Four. So my Final Four looks like this: Michigan and Kansas, Illinois and Arkansas. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But, here we are, Kansas, Michigan. You remember what happened the last time Kansas and Michigan played. Kansas had a big lead. Trey Burke led them back. Again, this all depends on the health of Isaiah Livers. Like I said, I think Isaiah Livers plays, and when Isaiah Livers plays, Michigan is the most dominant team in the country. I think they get the win over Kansas to move on to the national championship. Arkansas, Illinois. Arkansas, and they had a good run, an improbable run, but Ayo DeSumo and Illinois probably playing like the best team in the country right now. They move on. Funny how we get an all Big Ten final, but I just think the Big Ten is so good this year. It's very, very, very tough. Michigan, Illinois, these two teams have already played once this year. Illinois beat them by 23 at Michigan without Ayo DeSumo. And, I think that could play a factor into this. If Isaiah Livers isn't healthy, I think you will see a team like maybe Iowa or Gonzaga here instead of Michigan. But with Michigan being fully healthy, just simply too good, too much. with Isaiah Livers out there, with Ayu Dosunmu back, him and Illinois, like I said, are playing like the best team in the country. But I think this is a revenge game for Michigan, and I think they're gonna come out swinging. Michigan is your national champion by the score of 73-66. I don't think Michigan will come back and lose by 23 points. You very easily could make a case for Illinois to win the national championship because they are playing the best team in the country. They're going to be very hard to stop, but I think Juwan Howard will have his team rolling, and I think your national champion, you're looking at the Michigan Wolverines to be the national champion this year. I'm just excited that March Madness is back. March Madness was not there last year due to Corona cutting everything down and taking away one of the best months in all of sports. I'm happy for it to be back. I hope you are too. And no, I'm not being biased or a homer as many of you will probably think because I picked Michigan. Strictly a business decision and I gave my reason based solely on what happens. So we're going to go ahead and say Michigan wins. I did have Illinois winning at first, but, I looked back at it and I think the correct decision will be to pick Michigan. I think a lot of people want Gonzaga in Illinois. A lot of people have Gonzaga, Illinois. I think that's too safe of a choice. Everybody picking the undefeated Gonzaga is a safe bet. I don't think it'll happen. I think it'll be Illinois, Michigan. Comment down below or, share with me on social media, which will be in the description, on what you think the national championship will be or who your Final Four is, what you like about my bracket, what you don't like about my bracket. Comment below on all of that. And I hope to see all of you in the next video. I know it's been a minute since I gave one out. I'm hopefully going to consistently do some more. We have the big news in the NFL coming up, so I might sit down and talk about that. We also have a NFL draft coming, so I might do a mock draft. We got some exciting stuff coming onto the channel. Stay tuned. As always, thank you for listening. I am A-Train, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good jazz once again. My social media will be plugged down below. And everybody take care, enjoy, and watch lots of basketball with me or for me, either one. But let's all enjoy that March Madness is back. See ya.